What qualities do you believe make a great leader, and how many of them are traditionally considered feminine? How can we integrate feminine leadership traits to create a stronger and more inclusive society? What will leadership look like if we redefine power as influence rather than authority? And is the leadership model that we often have and witness daily in business, politics, and society in general up for the challenge of today's world? Join me after the intro for a conversation with a very special friend with whom we will answer this and many more questions. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's start. Hi, I'm Rossana D, and this is Forgive and Thrive, a podcast where we explore what thriving in life means and how we can achieve it, irrespective of our past, current condition, and expectations that those around us or society in general may have. Let's go. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. In a world facing rapid change, uncertainty, and systemic challenges, leadership is crucially important. So, is the leadership model that we have and witness daily in business, politics, and society in general up for the challenge? Or do we need a radical transformation of the way leadership is done? As we approach this year, Women's International Day, we want to explore how feminine leadership holds the key to creating a more conscious, equitable, just, sustainable, and peaceful world. And reflect on how it can foster resilience, inclusivity, and transformation in business, politics, and society. We discussed the role of feminine qualities like empathy, collaboration, and intuition in decision-making and in driving change, but also the challenges that women, especially in leadership, face and the mindset shifts that are needed to embrace sustainable and purpose-driven leadership. And we dive into this very timely and crucially important topic with today's guest, Pamela Thompson. Pamela is a leadership and transition coach and consultant, author and visionary leader who has lived and worked on 5 different continents, including in conflict zones. She supports mission-driven women at a crossroads to navigate change with increased clarity, confidence, and insight. She is also the founder of Female Wave of Change Canada, a national nonprofit dedicated to building a more equitable and sustainable world through the power of feminine leadership. She is also the creator of the Art of Change framework, a transformative process that supports mission-driven women to navigate life transitions. Pamela is also the author of 2 best-selling books, Learning to Dance with Life, a guide to high-achieving women, and The Exploits of Minerva, Reflections of a 60-something woman, and is soon to launch her 3rd book, Truths and Contradictions, Life-Changing Experiences in Afghanistan. Hi, Pamela. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Rosanna. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, I have to say, I read many impressive CVs with my experience here at the Forgive and Thrive, but yours really stands out. So I would love to start knowing a little bit more about you, in particular how you started and what was that made you devote your life and career to empowering other women.
You know what? In terms of my life, as you will know from reading a little bit on LinkedIn, I've done a variety of things in my life. And I guess I've always intuitively known when I was done with one position and ready for something else. And sometimes I didn't know what that something else was, Rosanna, but I would be in a situation and an opportunity would present itself and I'm like, I think this is it. Like, the time when I was working for the federal government in Canada and I was at a training session on project management in a government environment. And the trainer was the research and development person for a management consulting group. And after we presented our various small group work, he approached me and he said, "Where did you learn to facilitate?" And I said, "I just do it. I'm trained in therapeutic groups. I used to group and family therapy at one point, but I'm not trained in facilitation." He said, "We need to talk." Within 6 months and a handshake, I left my well-paying job with the benefits with the federal government on a handshake to go and work with this management consulting group, right? So these things happen. So how did it come to be, work with women, I guess you would say? I guess I worked with men and women because my first couple of companies that I had were consulting companies. I started in Canada and then did work internationally. And then a girlfriend of mine in particular, a really dear friend, said, Pam, you need to be a coach. So of course I studied life and business coaching. And I launched a coaching business where I had a network of coaches in Canada and the States, and we coached men and women through a variety of life transitions. Anyway, as life went on, I guess I would say it was about in 2010 that I had this epiphany really that I wanted to work with women. And I also had, have this larger mission to help build peace and understanding in the world. And I believe that women have an incredible role in that because we're the ones the glue that holds families together, and also are the transmitters of health information and a lot of other values that we get, because often typically in traditional families it used to be the woman stayed at home and the man went out to work. That's different obviously now, but I would say probably in about 2010 that I decided to move my coaching practice over to focusing on women and high achieving women in particular. And then in terms of leadership, I didn't really recognize myself or own myself being a leader till I was probably in my 50s, believe it or not.
Sometimes it happens that you need a whole life to formulate that idea and to come across so many experiences that help you create that idea. But I love your journey. You were easy on change, and you were easy on transforming yourself, not just others. Thank you for sharing that. And there is one aspect, one sentence that you mentioned, and it's about the feminine power, if you like, that can help us creating a better world. I agree with that, and I'm curious to know, what does that word look like for you or to you?
Okay, I'll give a little bit of backstory to this, if I may, Rosanna, as well. I am actually a member of a global social movement called Female Wave of Change, which was started by a woman called Ingun Bol in the Netherlands in 2017. It's just reached its 8-year anniversary, and we have ambassadors in about 40 countries around the world. And in 2020, I was approached by Ingun and interviewed by her and one of her board members, and then offered to be ambassador for Canada of this global social movement. And we believe that feminine leadership holds the key to creating a better world, a more conscious, equitable, just, sustainable, and peaceful one. And when I speak about feminine leadership, and we mean in terms of female wave of change, it means qualities such as creativity, some of the ones you mentioned at the outset: collaboration, compassion, emotional intelligence, intuition, inclusiveness. Qualities that are typically associated with the feminine, Rosanna. However, men can have them and learn them as well. And we do have men in our movement. However, we're focusing primarily on women and strengthening their feminine leadership qualities. However, men definitely need to be allies in this as well, in this whole process of change and changing structures and organizations. So I hope I answered your question here. And I went on to actually, because when I was named ambassador, a caveat was I was supposed to create a legal entity. So after doing some research on an appropriate governance structure, I ended up founding Female Wave of Change Canada, incorporating us as a national member-based nonprofit in December of 2020. And I led that organization until September of 23, when I handed over the leadership to open up space to write my next book. That said, it still continues. We have monthly virtual meetings with featured guests that we co-create with the featured guest. And we also have various other member benefits, including collective wisdom circles, Seeds of Change initiative, where people present projects. And we also work in 5 pillar areas, one of them being environment. And I'm very proud to say that 5 members and myself co-created the Mother Earth Ambassador Program during COVID. And it's an experiential outdoor education program for girls ages 9 to 12 to teach them about Mother Earth, the Mother Tree, and how to become Mother Earth ambassadors in their home schools and communities. So on our website, there's details on that. We have run one cohort through it to rave reviews from the girls and their mothers, and we're now looking for partners to implement it across North America and beyond. because we feel it's a very positive program and it's an important age to work with girls before they are strongly influenced by peers and reach puberty. So that there's a window there to make them realize they can be feminine leaders, because part of the process is they develop personalized action plans to make some potential impact in their home schools or communities as part of the process.
That is absolutely beautiful. There is something that you mentioned here, and thinking about all the qualities, do you think that perhaps one of the issues that we have nowadays is that we have misconceptions or perhaps a wrong idea still as a society of what true leadership is, and that leaves perhaps less space for women to make their way through. And with that is, do you have the feeling of there are so few women in leadership still? Do you think that these two aspects are connected?
Definitely. That's an excellent question. Misconceptions. I would say that the old style of leadership, which is demand, control, and hierarchy, where the leader knows everything and makes decisions, and the message is sent down below and, spun in a certain way to make the troops follow it. That old masculine model that's very much based on competition instead of collaboration. That's still the model that a lot of companies operate under. And it's totally out of alignment for women and women's energy, because we thrive on collaboration and working together. And so a lot of women in the past, as you know, have worked in organizations, these hierarchical organizations, and become like the men to get ahead. And even stronger than the men to get ahead, because they had to work that much harder to make it. And then what happens too is, if you work hard in those organizations, they just want more of you. And the expectations are you work 60, 70, 80 hours a month. And it's one thing to do that once in a blue moon. But if you're doing it and expected to do it all the time, you can't possibly have a decent family life. You can't have balance in your life. You can't have appropriate self-care. It's all about work. And that's really antithetical to feminine qualities and feminine energy. And so what happens, I think, and there's some data to prove this, is that what happens is women reach a certain point in their lives and they have to make a choice, like usually in their 30s or so. And so they've got some, experience underneath them, and they may be called for a promotion. And they have to make a decision often between this craziness of working night and day and sacrificing family and family life and their own life for the job, or deciding to have a more balanced life where they have a family and they choose to stay at middle management, for example. So they don't go to senior management and they don't start companies. A lot of women do start small businesses, don't get me wrong, but they don't often rise to major figures in terms of their businesses because of this, right? Some women do have house husbands, so that they talk it over and the husband decides to stay at home with the kids and do the stuff that a wife traditionally would. But I really feel, yeah, it's very hard for women who are driven and are intelligent and want to do it. It's like they come to a values conflict. So those are just a few of my thoughts on it, Rosanna.
I couldn't agree on this more, to be honest, because that's my experience, which is very limited compared to yours. And I also like what you said before, that this is not just a women issue. Man has to be well involved if any change has to happen. So the question, I suppose, for you is how can we make that happen? What can we do to talk with men and women together in such a way that we recognize that these qualities are needed, that men can learn. It's a skill, it's not a talent. And at the same time, women don't have to give up on their feminine side and traits in order to make that next step. Or perhaps they don't have to give up on family, they don't have to give up on health. I throw in health as well. And they can achieve high level and they can be really successful despite not giving up their life. What can we do to initiate that conversation or to make that conversation going with men?
I think that presenting data to show the incredibly positive impact that women have made in senior leadership positions, like the past president of New Zealand, right? And having a child when she was in power, basically acknowledging that she didn't want to continue because she was burning out and she had to make a decision, right? And, you know, Chancellor of Germany, during COVID, many feminine leaders stood up and were very strong and had more positive impact on they're keeping their countries safe, right? And so part of it is presenting that data, and also women-led businesses and their increased focus and productivity and engagement of their workers, right? And the morale of their workers, much higher than your traditional companies that are value competition over collaboration and are very hierarchical. So I just want to mention there's a man, Robert Vos, who's in the Netherlands, and he's part of Female Wave of Change Global, their inner circle. And he is very soon going to launch a course about men being allies with women. And so he's done a lot more research than I have done in that area. So if people are interested or you're interested, check out Robert Vos, V-O-S. He's written several books, and he's very strong on this, and has a number of strategies that he's got in mind related to doing this.
Fantastic. I will check that for sure. There is one aspect that I actually wanted to ask you, and that connects with that, because you had amazing experiences in 5 continents. I wanted to ask you if there was one aspect that you could change or perhaps challenge about leadership. How is it's taught, how is practiced globally, what that aspect would be?
I feel like when we get into cross-cultural situations, a lot of people worry about all the beliefs and practices around a certain culture. Like, oh my goodness, I'm working with a Muslim man. Do I have to be demure? How am I supposed to act? And so instead of focusing on their heart and connecting with a person like a person, it doesn't matter, regardless of their skin color, ethnicity, religion, they just treated them as a person, and they just connect with them. Then, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter. It really, what I believe is that we're pretty well all the same. We all want to belong. We all want to be valued and respected. Most of us, you know, and be loved. Most of us care about family. So if we looked at everybody through that lens and forgot about, you know, all these language, culture, religious barriers, it's not an issue. I personally, maybe I'm very fortunate, but I've worked around the world. I've been the boss of Muslim men, and I don't have any issues. You know, it's like you treat them with respect and you listen to them. You don't act like you're all powerful, but I'm not a chameleon. I don't change the way I am when I go into a different culture. I am who I am. It's important to honor and respect the cultural values. So when I worked in Afghanistan, for example, wearing a headscarf, wearing loose clothing, you know, I mean, there's certain things you don't know. You don't hug people. Men, you know, you don't do that. Women, they kiss you on 3 cheeks and they're very, very loving, right? But, you know, there are certain things that you don't do and you respect those. But other than that, it's really this just wanting to connect at the heart level and treat people with respect and as you would like to be treated. And I think it just is like moves mountains. You can accomplish all sorts of things when you do that.
Human is human, as they say. So
yes.
Absolutely, I love that. And I would like to carry on the feminine qualities, typically feminine qualities that we can bring to the table, because sometimes some of these qualities that I strongly believe are qualities and they inform about something, sometimes they are perhaps demeaned. There is particularly one that comes to my mind, and it's sensitivity. I've personally been told, oh, you are too sensitive for your own good. And I wanted to ask you what you think about it, because as a scientist, if I'm given to choose between 2 instruments, for example, that measure exactly the same quantity, but the only difference is one is more sensitive than the other, I would choose the most sensitive every single day of the week. And my impression is that sensitivity is only a bad quality when it comes to the human sphere. Personally, I don't believe that. Personally, I still believe that when you are more sensitive, you can still feel the room, read the room perhaps a little bit better than those that are less sensitive. But I would like to know what you think about it. And is there a way we can shift the conversation and perhaps flip the coin on this particular word?
I totally agree with you that sensitivity is an incredibly valuable quality to have. And it is sometimes challenging, particularly in highly competitive, hierarchical environments. That said, there's incredible data. It's linked to emotional intelligence, empathy. When you're aware of your own emotions and also you can feel and sense those of others, you're a much more powerful leader than those who are very hard and their hearts are not open and they're insensitive. Because it's like, it's my way or the highway, and we've kind of seen that what's happens in organizations and governments around the world when they operate like that. So I believe that being sensitive, it's a much more human-centered approach to working, managing, leading, living, really. So if you're sensitive, you have a gift, but it is kind of a double-edged sword, because sometimes if you're highly sensitive, you also feel the negative emotions, and it can make you want to constrict, even though you try to keep your heart open, right? So, but I do truly believe it's a gift. And changing the conversation, I think part of it is just, we know that emotional intelligence has been on the radar for a few years, number of years now. Goldman has done a lot of work, and then others since him. And I feel like, that quality is part of emotional intelligence, and people are realizing how valuable it is. And there's data to show this in terms of engagement, morale, focus, productivity. There's a number of indicators that support the value of emotional intelligence and sensitivity being part of that.
Again, I couldn't agree more. So thank you very much for your opinion on this particular topic. If you had to give a list of challenges that leaders nowadays face in business, in political settings, perhaps in society in general, what would be the sort of top challenges that leaders have to face today, and what would you say feminine leadership can help navigate them?
Okay, that's a big question. The challenges are, a big one, I would say, is preventing burnout. Because this feeling of having to juggle so many balls and things coming at you. So that's a big. So I'll deal, I guess, with the challenges, and then with each one I'll talk about how feminine leadership can help it. Preventing burnout. One of the things about feminine leadership is this idea of balance as well, yin and yang, whatever. And so part of being a feminine leader is you have a priority for self-care. And you also set healthy boundaries. So you model that for others, and you're very clear on your expectations in terms of, if you send an email later on, I notice at the bottom of your emails, for example, you say, even though I sent emails outside of working hours, I don't expect you to respond. Well, similarly, people, managers, leaders doing that, also saying, I don't expect you to work at night. When you leave here, I expect that to be finished for the day. And also on weekends, there may be times when you're hot to a deadline where you have to do that, but that is not the norm. So establishing those boundaries, prioritizing self-care, being clear on your expectations. These are all ways that feminine leadership can help prevent burnout. Another challenge is leading through change and uncertainty. Our world is so uncertain now, and there's change happening all around it. So one of the things that we can do to lead through change and uncertainty is to stay flexible and open to possibilities. Like, we still need our strategic and operational plans, but we need to really still stay open and flexible, because something else can come into the environment, right? This idea of staying grounded during times of intense stress, right? Learning these techniques, studying mindfulness, being able to be grounded, because sometimes you have to hold a room when there's chaos happening around you. And certainly feminine leaders who study, which is part of the studying mindfulness, connecting with your body, getting out of your head and connecting with your body, these are some ways. The other thing we can do in terms of leading through change and uncertainty is really co-creating things rather than just feeling we have to know all the answers. So acknowledging we don't have the answers and co-creating this common and a shared vision. And helping people in organizations feel part of that rather than feeling like it's some decision made higher up that's being spun by the communications person throughout, then we have to follow up, but rather people knowing and understanding how they fit into organizations. And that in itself helps with change. The other thing is to make people aware of the importance of embracing versus resisting change. Because when we resist change, it has negative impacts on our bodies, our minds, relationships, and our bottom lines. So if you teach people how to embrace it and the benefits of embracing it, and that's why I developed my 5-step Art of Change framework, because it takes people through a process that helps them get out of their head into their bodies and really look at how they respond to change and why, and then to look at different aspects of change and different work associated with the different parts of change, letting go, feeling change in your body or feeling, the emotions of letting go in your body and having different techniques to release. Another challenge is artificial intelligence and using it effectively, because you can't forget about it and we want to use it ethically. So assistant AI. And so that's just changing so rapidly. And yeah, it's this. So, and then in terms of feminine leadership, again, being able to be centered and focused and grounded and open to learning new ideas. So part of this is, this openness to learning and growing, which is very much feminine receptive, open to learning and growing. So I think, again, feminine leadership can support in that. Those are the 3 main ones that pop into my brain at this point in time. Rosanna.
It's absolutely very useful. So thank you for that. And you mentioned being flexible a number of times. You mentioned change. So do you mind take us through the art of change transformation that you have devised and to talk a little bit how we can release and let go of whatever situation we are stuck with and embrace change and what can come with it.
Well, thank you, Rosanna. I'd be pleased to do that. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that this particular framework is underpinned by the belief that embracing change is a creative process that opens us up to new possibilities. Now, when you say that and you feel that in your body, it's kind of light and open. But when you say change is to be feared, your body, your hair contracts and whatever, yeah. And so part of this process is to learn to open your heart rather than resist it. So, and the other thing is it's based on the metaphor life is a dance. So in some organizations, obviously people would initially look at it and say, it's very fluffy, like we don't have any room for this. But if you can get into that more playful, open mindset and realize that embracing change is a very positive thing. So what do we do it? How do we do it? So the first one is, there's 5 steps, as I mentioned. Shine the light, choose your dance, feel the rhythm and learn the steps, practice, 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 and consciously share your dance with the world. So shine the light, that's where you explore how you typically respond to change. I ask people to say, how do you typically respond to change on a scale from 1 to 10, Rosanna? 1 being scares me to death, 10 being I thrive on it. How do you typically respond to change?
I would say I'm between a 4 and 5.
There you go. That's okay. And I want to say that it doesn't matter if you're 4 and high. If I'm a 9 or a 10, it doesn't make me better than you. It's just acknowledging it and understanding it, right? And then working with it. And so what if a change comes out of the blue to you, Rosanna, like, you're given a pink slip or whatever, something happens that you have no idea is coming down the pike. How would you rate yourself in terms of responding to change in that situation?
I think if it's really out of the blue, perhaps I embrace it more easily than if it's a change that I need to think of. Sometimes I personally get stuck into the thinking and, my ego gets in the way, or the uncertainty that might come obviously from the future because I don't have a crystal ball. So everything, that could happen, but I don't know if will ever happen, can be an obstacle. I embraced a few changes, literally out of the blue, and big changes, moving to a different country, other situations that I'm making in motion almost as we speak, and that there was absolutely no idea, or I didn't see it coming. It just happened and I embraced it. And I have to say, whenever that happened, generally speaking, the new situation was better than the one I was living
That's
through.
often the case. There's always usually a silver lining. Interesting what you said about something out of the blue, because often what happens is if I ask somebody to rate themselves on a scale from 1 to 10, a lot of leaders will say nine or a 10. But then when you ask them if a change came out of the blue, they'd say a 4 or a 5. So that is very interesting because you're often it's you think a lot. So when you have to think a lot, that takes you longer, right? And anyway, so that's very interesting. So okay, second step is choose your dance. So it's very important that you choose where you are, what transition you want to focus on, because sometimes people are doing more than one thing at the same time, like moving to a new country, starting a new job, right? That's two transitions. With this process, it's important to just go through one at a time. So choose your dance. And the transition journey, what I mean by that is I base part of my framework on the work of William Bridges, who was an organizational theorist who, sadly, he's passed, from working more than 30 years with people in organizations, identified that regardless of the transition people are going through, there are three distinct phases: an ending, a neutral zone, and a new beginning. And there's work associated with each phase. And if we don't do the work, we often end up repeating the same patterns in our lives and remaining unhappy and unfulfilled. Now, you can point this out to personal life, where you may know people who have been married 3, 4, and 5 times. And initially there's a honeymoon phase. And then after, they're basically going through the same issues that they did in the previous relationships, because they haven't really done their own personal work and decided who they are and what they want in their life. So there's the ending, there's the neutral zone, and the work of that is envisioning that new life, that new career, that new position, whatever it is. And so envisioning that. And the third phase is the new beginning, where you take action toward the vision that you created in the second phase. So I'm sort of bringing in two aspects here: William Bridges' work and things that I've modified in terms of it, and my process. And so after you identify where you are, usually people are at the ending of something. They've chosen, or something has chosen them. And so the work associated with that ending phase is letting go, and I've added identifying lessons learned. So for example, if you're in a senior management position, you may have an incredible salary. You have incredible benefits. You might have a company credit card. You might have a company car. All these things, status. You have to let go of all that. You step out and start your own business. You don't have any of that anymore. You don't have a financial security. None of us really have that now, but it's like a lot of people think you're financially secure if you have a real job, right? So anyway, so really getting clear on letting go and noticing, how that feels and processing that. There's different things I can do with people to help them process stuff. And then identifying lessons learned. So what have I learned from that position? Like maybe there were a whole lot of things that I liked, but I realized my values were totally out of alignment with the organizations. So I'm all about collaboration. They're all about competition. I'm all about setting healthy boundaries and balance, and they expect me to work 70 or 80 hours a week. And the thing is, when you first looked at the position, you looked at the skill sets and what was required and experience. You thought, oh, check the boxes. I'm good here. But then when you got there and you found out what it was really like, and you're like, a lot of people don't realize what's going on, but they're really all of a sudden where they've been gung-ho, they're unhappy and they can't figure it out. Well, it's often an alignment, a values misalignment, right? They're not a good fit for the organization. So anyway, letting go, identifying lessons learned. And so so if you identify the lesson learned out of that, so next time, what's really important for me? Well, I want to really find out from people inside the organization if they walk their talk, if they have these values of collaboration and partnership. Do they really do it? Do they believe in family, or do they expect me to work 70? Because a lot of people have these lovely values on the wall, but they don't walk their talk, right? We know that. We know that. So anyway, and the next phase is feel the rhythm and learn the steps. That's when you start to feel change in your body. And it could be scary. You deal and begin taking these steps along your transition journey path. So letting go, identifying lessons learned, then creating this vision. of what you want. And a lot of times it's really helpful to spend time in nature to do that because it's very clearing, and that's why people often go on retreats. You don't have to go on retreat, but you can go on your own retreat. But being in nature and journaling is very helpful to do these. And we know about vision boards and all sorts of things, right? And then creating an action plan. And then practice, practice, practice. That's where you keep moving through that transition journey, doing these different steps and phases. And then, you have this action plan where you take action and consciously sharing your dance with the world. When you walk through change in this way, embracing it, and you shed different things along the way, then people around you notice. So you have a ripple effect on the people around you. I wanted to add that it's really also powerful for working with managers, working with their groups and organizations, ideally at the beginning of a change, because a lot of times, people who fear change, and we're physiological hardwired to fear it, but have more challenges with it than others. They're sort of drug along, dragged along. Whereas if you use the process and you say, so how does everybody respond to change? And people take time and you share and you make it really clear that a 9 or a 10 doesn't make them better than a 4 or a 5. It just is. And then you have a conversation saying, how can we support you to move through this change so we're in it together, rather than making that person feel bad and as if they're not part of the group, right? Rather than we're together, let's support each other to move through this change. It's not easy. How can we support each other? So you can have those kind of conversations when you use this process.
No, I think that is an extremely important point because organizations very often go through reorganizations and all sorts of changes that can be quite unsettling for people. And sometimes there are reasons why they sort of resist. And they might feel that they are losing something. They are losing their habits. They are losing their office mate. They are losing, perhaps they are moved to a different building. So they have all sorts of little things that define their day at work. And suddenly everything disappears. And they might take that a little bit on a personal level. And I have some experience being on the receiving hand, someone or a group that took some changes on a personal level. And obviously it's not an easy situation to navigate. So thank you very much for that. I think it's extremely useful. There is one question that I am burning to actually to ask you. I have a 9-year-old niece, and my dream for her, my wish for her, obviously, is to see her thriving in life, and to become perhaps a future leader, if of anything, at least a leader of her own life. And so, what advice could I borrow from you to give her? Or if you like, if you had in front of you a younger version of yourself, what sort of advice would you give her when it comes to leadership and when it comes to life in general, and how to navigate changes and transformation? What that would be?
A great question. I would say believe in yourself. You can do anything you put your mind to. Just believe. Be brave. Learn to listen to and trust in your body's wisdom because your body always knows the truth. I guess another thing would be to identify and reach out to people you would perceive as mentors or wise sages and learn from them so that you don't have to learn all your lessons the hard way.
That's such a beautiful advice. Thank you very much. I will definitely follow it. And I think this is a fantastic point to move the conversation back on you. Is there anything that you want to share with us? I know that your third book is on the way. Is something that we mentioned something about Afghanistan and the experience that you had there. Is there anything that you want to share with us? Perhaps when will be available?
I appreciate that opportunity, Rosanna. Thank you. Yes, my third book is called Truths and Contradictions, Life-Changing Experiences in Afghanistan. And the first part of the book it was about my experiences, both scary and funny, if you will, of living and working in Afghanistan as a senior technical advisor in policy and planning. I lived and worked there for 13 months in 2010 and 2011. and then went back for a short mission in 2015. And the first mission, I worked with the Ministry of Public Health, which is the Ministry of Health for the country, to help them develop their first strategic plan and build the capacity of internal teams to do planning. It was an incredible experience. So I was called to write this book because I want to shine the light on the incredible courage and resilience of so many of the Afghan people, but also to dispel myths about Afghans, Afghanistan, and Islam. So the first part of the book is told through Minerva, who is a muse that I wrote through in my second book. She's largely autobiographical, but she also has this playful energy. And the second half of the book is based on interviews that I did with Afghan men and women about their experiences growing up in Afghanistan, about tribalism, about different experiences during key historic events like the Taliban the first time, the second time, the Russian invasion. And so that actually I have quotations and I did change the names of everyone because I want to respect their anonymity, right? So yes, it's a work that's dear to my heart, and I am planning to release on Amazon in early April. And yes, so we're getting very close, and I'm hoping it does very well and many people around the world read it, because I think it also has application not only to Afghanistan, but a lot of the other wars and conflicts that are happening in the world.
Absolutely. And with the times we are living, it's very important to bear in mind, because there are so many conflicts that are on the news every day. There are many others that perhaps just go under the radar, but they are still there, and there are people that are affected on a daily basis. So thank you very much for that book, and thank you very much for shedding the light on such an important topic. So if our listeners would like to know, you mentioned the book will go on Amazon, but we'd like to know a little bit more about you and what you do, and perhaps get in touch with you. Where can they find you?
Well, my website is pamela-thompson.com. And if you want to learn more about my books, it's pamela-thompson.com/books. And I should say that there is a new lead magnet that would be there. So if you want to be notified of the release date and to be kept abreast of what I'm doing, there's a free gift on the site related. It's something like 5 leadership lessons from living and working on 5 continents. It's got a slightly different title, but that's the essence of it. So yes, so people can feel free to sign up to that. I'm also primarily on LinkedIn, Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram. So people can find me on any of those social media platforms.
Perfect. And as always, we will put all the links in the description of today's episode. Pamela, very final question. If there was one take-home message that you would love everybody to remember from this conversation, what that would be?
Believe in yourself and know that you can do whatever you put your mind to.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Well, as we wrap up this conversation, it's quite clear to me that by embracing qualities like empathy, collaboration, intuition, and resilience, leaders can create a more conscious, equitable, and sustainable world for everybody. Challenging outdated leadership models and building a future where leading with heart is the norm and not the exception is everyone's responsibility, regardless of the gender we align with. And with this in mind, I finally have the opportunity to end an episode with one of my favorite quotes. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. Simon Sinek. Pamela, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, for sharing so much about what you do and all the experiences that you have had in your life so far. I truly enjoyed this conversation. It was mind-blowing. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rosanna. Likewise, I very much enjoyed the opportunity to be with you today and share some of my thoughts and experiences.
Thank you. Well, we would love to know what you think about this topic. Are you in a leadership position or leadership journey? If so, let us know how it's going and tell us how your experience compares with what we have just discussed with Pamela. Are there insights from Pamela that you can integrate into your own leadership journey straight away? Let us know. But if you need extra help, do check Pamela's website, her books, her work, and follow her on social media. You will find all the links in the show note of today's episode. Join me next time when we will continue exploring inspiring and challenging situations. Because remember, we are together in this journey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to hit the notification bell and like this video. See you in the next one.